Nimekuja kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku, mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Mchana kutwa sijakula chakula, presha tu, nauma na presha inanishika huko.
Nimekuja kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku, mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Mchana kutwa sijakula chakula, presha tu, nauma na presha inanishika huko.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're on air.
Hey everybody, and welcome to season 3 of The Big Picture. Big picture topics, new perspectives, and some banter in between. My name is John Allen. I'm the oldest on this set, an early millennial. And to my, this is my right and my left.
That's
This is my right and my left.
Yeah.
I have two people who introduce us.
Justine, you want to start?
Yes, my name is Justine. I am a stand-up comedian, a writer, and a satirist. And I'm going to get African Uncensored credit, so I'm so proud.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. You already have a sticker.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, before
Graduation.
I'm Tom Mukwana, or Thomas Mukwana. I am a fact checker and reporter at African Uncensored, and I hope I don't get cancelled. Yeah, I hope I don't get cancelled.
No, when you start by setting the bar that's low, Tom, surely, where do we go from here?
Up. The only way we can
The
go
only way
is
is
up.
up.
Yes.
So. But we do have lots of stuff to talk to you about and to discuss with you. As we've mentioned, we are live on X and on YouTube, so find us from wherever you are, wherever in the world you are. Make this your time to tune in, whether it's in the morning and you're driving to work, or it's in the afternoon and you're just trying to Skype work at the office or doing whatever. Or in the evening on your commute home. We'd be glad to be the people who accompany you. And we've got a couple of big topics to discuss. We've got stuff that happened over the weekend. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Interesting one. Big news around the world, but kind of went after the fight. But we'll talk about that. We've got the protests in Mozambique. Down south, things are heating up quite seriously. Then, of course, there's been this topic that we've been speaking about. I don't know if I should call it a topic rather than like an issue. Femicide and the impacts of, we've had a number of very, sobering deaths over the past couple of weeks. And there's politics, the sport, and some appear banter. So let us start with the least serious issue here. Tom,
Yeah.
What did you do over the weekend?
I watched a lot of combat sports. So that's boxing and MMA.
Why do you define it so like?
It's so nicely, right?
Like I watched
Violent stuff.
violence.
Violent stuff.
All right.
I watch a lot of violence.
How about you, Justine?
So I spent my weekend looking at memes of combat sports
Oh my God!
because I'm not a boxing fan, but
Like you didn't get swept up by this Jake Paul, Mike Tyson thing.
I'm very proud to say I don't have any peer pressure in my life. I do not conform to the standards of the world.
At all?
No, I don't.
Hey, must be nice.
Only World Cup. World Cup is the only one where I'm like, okay, peer pressure gets me.
But is it because you like football, or is it because World Cup is genuinely like?
It's
the
because
biggest?
I do love football.
So then you can't call it then conforming. You're part of the name.
But I was brought up under peer pressure. Like you could only watch football.
Who was your favorite team?
It was Brazil for a very long time, and then I graduated, and now I support Ivory Coast.
Oh, Cote d'Ivoire. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Like from start of the tournament to the end, you're Cote d'Ivoire.
Not really. I just change teams until I find the one who's winning. Like everyone does
That's
that.
better. That's better. 'Cause-
The disloyalty,
Yeah.
like it's ridiculous.
but it's like that, man.
Now for guys who watched Mike Tyson, like as he was coming up the rankings, and this was a big weekend, right? The guy's 58 years old. We were all hoping, now us guys who are on this side of 40, we were really hoping that he would put a good spanking on Jake Paul.
Yeah.
But as someone said in the comments section, I think it was even one of the commentators, like you can't beat Father Time. The guy is 58. He was moving like I guess like a very fit 58-year-old, but a 58-year-old nonetheless. So thoughts? May have given mine. Tom,
Yeah.
what do you think? You watched.
I hated it.
You hated
I
it?
hated it. I hated the
What,
whole thing.
the boxing match, the fact that it was a spectacle, what did you hate?
Everything.
Really?
Like, first of all, I liked the matchup because Tyson,
Yeah.
it's Tyson, man. You've been hearing this guy speak on a podcast for very long, and he seems tough, and you watch the videos.
Actually, that's interesting. I want to ask.
That's crazy.
Did you ever watch?
Never.
Him?
Never.
Never like
watched
you
him
never
fight.
watched Tyson?
No, only the clips on YouTube.
Wow.
Never watched it. You guys have watched him fight?
Yes.
Like at his prime.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Like I watched the Holyfield fight where he bit the guy's ear off.
No
man.
way.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like Mike Tyson was anyway something to behold, but anyway, I was cutting you off.
It gives away a lot about my age. But anyway, I watched the whole thing and it sucked from the beginning.
So you said okay, you didn't like it.
Yeah.
The matchup you liked. So what didn't you like?
I didn't like the match. I liked the idea of Tyson fighting. I didn't like the reality of him fighting. You understand?
Okay.
As in just from watching all those YouTube clips and seeing him knock these people out like a madman, him biting someone's ear off, and then you watch these clips and you still look at him like a bad man. But then,
yeah, but you know, I guess okay, I can see where you're coming from. Like when you compare the legend of a man like Mike Tyson to what we saw over the weekend, then it does fall kind of flat. Like it was a bit no.
I'll say from what I know of Mike Tyson as a fighter, seeing him fight, and then whatever it is you guys watched, I feel like the reason he did this fight was for the money. And may I applaud it. May I'm like, look, you're 58, you're not gonna get KO'd on like when the whole world is watching.
The guy's a millionaire.
He's
like,
not a millionaire. He's actually kind of bankrupt. He used like a lot of...
he was.
He was bankrupt, and I think he came back from bankrupt.
But then I'm saying like there's a fear of going back to the bankruptcy. So it's almost like right now a lot of, what are they called? Like streamers do not know how to get people to watch their stuff, but also there's a lot of old athletes who are worried about like the money situation going into retirement. Even if you're a millionaire, like if you don't have like Bitcoin in case it shifts, like money shifts to Bitcoin, you want to have like that kind of leverage,
So
and I think that's what he did.
For those of us who are heading towards retirement sooner than others, now tunafaa tuingie Bitcoin, we invest.
Yes.
No, just like buy gold and move into the woods. That's what you should do.
So I didn't watch it live. I watched it later on. You guys were telling me that there were problems with the stream, right?
Terrible.
Like what was happening?
Like you have a Netflix subscription, right?
Yes.
You're used to watching movies on Netflix, and you get the thing in like a second. It's rolling. Now for that fight, imagine millions of people watching the same thing, and then when Mike Tyson is walking, you know, the walkout thing, the hive, it buffers, goes down kabisa, and you're completely locked out.
But this is for me, this is why maybe like I'm being contrarian for no reason, but like this was my thing, right? So if it's buffering, this is Netflix, like they've got servers on servers on servers and redundancies everywhere. But if the site is crashing, the site is failing, isn't that kind of like a success in terms of the number of people who are interested in the fight itself? And this is an exhibition fight for all intents and purposes. There's no belt that Jake Paul was going to win. There's nothing that Mike Tyson was going to get. But millions, hundreds of millions across the world tuning in had you on a crash Netflix. And isn't that kind of like a success?
I think it's a success-ish, but like if people are complaining they couldn't see the fight, then what was the point?
Yeah.
I think that's what got, like for Tom, that's what he
boxing match. The commentary was terrible.
I have to say, yeah, like that. Okay, so Roy Jones, as a boxing commentator, I felt did a good job because like he was pointing out the things that you need to point out as a boxer. Mike Tyson's legs are gone. You know, he's not boxing the way, he's not moving the way. So like as a person who's like an aficionado, then yes, that's interesting. This other guy was just shouting all over the mic and naming platitudes from end to end. Then was it Rosie Perez who was kind of like just constantly like agreeing with Roy Jones Jr. I mean, in as much as he might have been right. I was like, anyway, like okay.
And Cedric. Cedric the Entertainer. What was he doing at a boxing match?
But you see, that okay. So that's kind of the thing that I think Jake Paul has kind of brought to boxing. He's brought the show to the business, right? And it's like exciting now to be kind of part. Have you raised your hand?
Yes. I think we're having the wrong discussion.
Okay,
a lot of
us.
sports, a lot of like people genuinely. Don't require the hype. I feel like Jake Paul.
I know. Example.
I'll say.
Okay. No, give me an example.
Okay. I'll use an analogy that's not like very popular and it's probably going to divide the room. Like for hip hop was really, really cool and fun and what is it called? Experimental.
Yes.
And then it got to a point where people would use hip hop to get to other stages.
Like?
I'll give an example of what's this very tattooed person, Post Malone.
Oh yeah.
So Post Malone started out as a hip hop singer.
Yes.
And then suddenly he now only does country music. And I feel like J. Cole is the Post Malone of boxing, where he has the access to like train and do all these fun things, but he has a following that is very problematic. And he knows he can make a lot of money doing this, but like, is Jake Paul a boxer?
I think, you know what?
Is he a boxer?
Me, my 2 cents, I think he is. He just came up an unconventional route.
No,
like he came, like, okay, let's put it this way. Remember the bobsledders from Jamaica where they did the cool runnings thing?
Yes.
Those guys were athletes, they were doing all sorts of things, but you see, they became legitimate bobsledders in the end. And I guess it's the unconventional route for me, but it's still legitimate because the guy isn't there going and like boxing and just throwing his hands around and flailing. The other match that we should have watched and paid attention to actually to maybe rate him is when he fought Tommy Fury. Tyson Fury's brother. Yeah. He lost that fight, but he kind of held his own as well. So I think that Apo Kindondi,
he had a knockdown.
Yes,
he's had knockdowns in all his fights except this one.
Except for this one, and that I feel like he kind of pitied him. But okay, so enough said on that. Tumeongea sana kuhusu boxing. There's one more really big combat sport event that took place over the weekend. Do I ask you for your comments? Can
I just saw someone fell.
Jeez. Okay, so it was John Jones. It was John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. So why
UFC?
This is UFC. So why this fight was like big was because John Jones throughout his career has only been beaten once, and he actually wasn't even beating exactly. He was disqualified. Stipe Miocic was the most like. I guess not. I don't say talented, but like he had held the belt for the longest time. He was one of the most accomplished heavyweights, and so this was like now best of the best, GOAT versus GOAT, etc. And this was John Jones coming back to the ring. I think after 2 years, Miocic since 2021 when Francis Ngannou had beaten him, and I mean the fight lived up to its billing, at least on John Jones's side. I think it was a proper domination. I wonder about, okay, so as a champion, as a fighter, etc., like I like John Jones, but I don't know, that's kind of where it stops for me. Like I don't know why, right? You don't like the...
I liked the fight.
Yeah.
I liked the fights that led to the fight. But then I
Yes.
hated everything that happened after almost every fight.
Me, like him,
What
is
happened
beef with.
during the fight?
Like,
Are you
Trump.
not impressed with?
No, it was impressive. It was
Yeah.
like super
Yeah.
impressive.
Yes.
He fought really well, technically brilliantly. Like he fought and he put Miocic down, and he won legitimately. For me, why I kind of like feel weird about John Jones is his beef with DC Comics.
Oh yeah.
So John Jones can be a very arrogant person, but I guess it kind of comes with the territory, right? But you were mentioning someone who
I
was in
didn't,
the
I didn't like
audience.
how politics was dragged into the whole thing.
But you know who was in the audience? Trump.
And Elon.
And Elon Musk
Front
and RFK, and there was like a whole sort of constellation of Republican politicians winning, and then like maybe
The dance.
Did he
John
do the
Jones,
dance?
he did the dance
Twice.
afterwards. Yeah.
And it was just annoying how he rallied people to saying, I think it was something like America.
Yeah.
And then
USA and all of
went
that.
to
And
give Trump the belt.
you know what, guys? It's not on the you need to discuss, but now you guys are kind of taking me there, you know. And I guess I just want to get a sense of where you guys kind of think about America and the world and the global order now that Trump is the president. I know this happened early November. You know, lots of people have pontificated about it, but there's like one or two things. I'm sure, Justine, there's a material there.
Yeah.
Like for 4 years.
I don't want to say anything out of time, but I'm just like I think the world as we knew it has ended, and we are kind of pawns of the richest people in the game.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. Like the richest people will get to dictate our lives now, and it's happening at every possible scale.
But what is different about
what's different right
Yes.
now is because a lot of people think they're participating in changing that. I'll give an example of like how people have really embraced Elon Musk as their savior against mainstream media, and his own app says he's the biggest propagator of misinformation, and people are just kind of okay with it. So we are living in someone else's experiment, and they can take that away from us at any given time. And people don't seem worried at all that your entire life is now based on like an algorithm that someone else built.
Okay, so there's the algorithmic problems with X and what have you, but that's generally like a social media thing. That's generally something that's become a part of our lives in a sense, where you're building these algorithmic composites of like Justine or Tom, and you're wondering whether the choices that you're really making are guided choices, or are they truly your choices, the choices that you're making. So I get that problem, right? So, but what's the issue with like Trump being comprehensively?
Yeah.
He seems to be speaking to a larger audience than the MAGA guys, like meaning that there were guys who were probably like Democrat who then turned Republican, or were on the fence and then turned Republican and voted for him. This like the victory was comprehensive, right? But does that say something on the whole that's like a net negative for the US, or is it something that we can look forward to 4 years of very interesting things? And maybe what you could do while you're answering is now put Kenya in the equation. So Trump plus Kenya equals Y. Tom.
I have had a lot of criticism of Biden's administration, as for good reason, because this guy has the ambassador that he chose for Kenya has almost danced to the tune of the oppressor, so to say. You understand?
Okay.
So this then translates to hate for Biden.
Yes.
So the hope is the Trump administration, and Trump likes this hands-off approach to politics, especially foreign relations. He likes saying, "I will end all wars. I will remove all our money from outside from outside spending." You understand? That's why Elon's office is there, the Department of Government Efficiency.
Him and Vivek
Vivek, that the
famous
dude,
one.
yeah.
Yes.
So yes, so that appeals to a lot of the international audience.
But again, and I hate to like be like devil's advocate here, right? But look, if there's a person who has a proven track record, and we're stripping away all of the things that we feel about Elon Musk, right? He has a proven track record of going from company to company and being like ruthlessly efficient, right? Tearing down X, to 20% of its staff in terms of engineers, etc. Yes, the servers became a bit wonky over time, but then, things seems to have picked up. We're still on X, and he's done this for Tesla. He's also done this for SpaceX. He's done this for the Boring Company. He's done this, he has this track record of actually creating or building on efficiencies within private industry, right? So shouldn't that be a good thing for,
No. I don't think so.
What are these
Just
passive
think,
aggressives?
Honestly, as much as I'd like to say he's very efficient, you have to look at what has been taken for that to be called efficiency. And the Twitter branch, I think the African branch that was in Ghana, if I'm not wrong, was closed. And those people did not get severance. And like, it was kind of like, thanks for coming, and that was it. And people are like, yeah, that guy knows how to run a company. He's very efficient. And then what happens to those people's lives? So if we think about it in the larger context of how he runs things, what does that say about him being in like a very big position, like government, like running a government? So what will that mean for people's lives? How will they be impacted? How will that shape the way people even see efficiency as a whole?
Okay, so
because I don't think running a company is the same as like taking away government initiatives that are probably changing people's lives.
That's true.
Yes.
However, what's to say that the efficiencies that are created won't then provide more revenues for that country to be able to run? Like, and I hate that we're speaking so much about the US and not tuongelelei Kenya, but anyway.
But I wanted to just like point out the fact that if you okay, let's say for example, say they took away the Ministry of Gender because they don't feel like all these issues can be compounded into other places and like they'll still work. What's to say that all the issues that were being handled are going to be handled differently,
or with the same level
with
of
the
care.
same level of care? Yes, that's what I mean. Like, it can look efficient, the numbers can look really good on paper, but are we doing impact assessment on people's lives?
Interesting. So to that question that I asked Tom na haja nijibu, Trump plus Kenya equals
Shauri zenu.
na wewe Tom?
I mean, I feel like I think it means you are I'm trying to find a better word than the F word, but you're messed. You're at a terrible place. Because if such ideologies are like trickled down, because they believe those trickle down economics, which is give everyone at the top the most incentives, then for some reasons more jobs will be created, more salaries will, more people will form. So that's his approach. It was also the approach of
Nimekuja
Kenya's
kuamshiwa
economics.
kama saa 9 za usiku mpaka dakika hii bado
Session of paper 10, 1965 and what have you,
And so that the
Chana
massive
kutwa
inequality,
chakula
right? Some
chakula.
people feel left out of the economy.
So you think a
Pressure
Trump
tu.
presidency
Nauma na
would
pressure
entrench
inashika.
global inequality because of the way
It's just Reagan all over again.
his economics?
Yes.
And it will also entrench politics of hate and us versus them politics. And I know that's always existed. But then now it's going to be more influential.
nimekuja kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Chana kutwa sijakula chakula, pressure tu, nauma na pressure inanishika huko.
Nimekuja kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku, mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Mchana kutwa sijakula chakula, pressure tu, nauma na pressure inanishika huko.
Al-Shabaab coming down, now the Rwandese military going there to protect a pipeline that's being built by Total, and all sorts of mercenaries. The same old guys from South Africa and Russia, etc., playing their games there. But this is why it was interesting. These guys come and say that they are going to invest in maritime projects. They get a couple of parastatals. They get a couple of parastatals, and you can see that some of the protests on screen now. They get a couple of parastatals and use those parastatals as the people who are taking the loans, and say that those loans are going to be used to to build. I think it was on some maritime projects, right? So the corruption wasn't even local. It was between the finance minister and like 20 other co-conspirators and someone from Credit Suisse, right? And the bribes that this guy was getting, like $7 million bribes, 200 million in terms of, just spreading the cash around. And why I say this is, there's a parallel, even, somewhat even in terms of time, is this is around the same time that, Kenya was going to the commercial markets for the Eurobond. Because essentially the loan that the Mozambicans got was a commercial loan. So now they leverage these local parastatals. These guys stop paying the installments, start going bankrupt, country's in trouble. So that's the context, kind of like what was happening with us with debt.
Yes.
But then there's also now just this whole legacy issue of corruption. Frelimo since 1977 has had lots of problems, etc., etc. So this guy then now calls for protests, and it's nationwide. And I guess why I'm trying to draw these loose parallels is to ask whether you guys feel like there's any sort of lessons that we can be learning as Kenyans from what's happening in Mozambique, or if you agree, even if there's parallels. Justin, maybe you can.
I think for me, the biggest parallel that I saw was probably the police and like their treatment of people. And it's almost like the playbook is so similar.
It's the same.
It's like one person is training every single cop around this continent, and it's a little scary. I wish there was a way we would have sent them notes, you know, like just make sure to know that this is likely what will happen. And also there's a lot of militarization of the police across the continent, and police are being militarized against citizens, and there's almost no way to protest that's accepted, and this just kind of spirals and harms a lot of people's lives. And I think old people have a problem. Like they don't know how to talk to their citizens. Like older leaders just they've lost it. Like they have no... I don't know a word that's not gonna get me in prison. But I think I really, really wish African leaders as a whole didn't just go to conferences to echo dictatorships and like fascist ideologies. They would actually even just like with the policies that they choose to take up,
Yeah.
they were more people-centered and not, oh, IMF told us to say this and we are sorry, we can't do anything about it. Because I feel like it's like some repetition of that, and I really wish there was a way we could change that.
Tom?
Yeah.
So many parallels, and I'll go back to the context that you laid. So the Mozambican context is really similar to the Kenyan context.
Yeah.
They have this election that is absolutely rigged. And they have this guy who represents
absolutely
70% win rate in a country that
you never know.
Madly unpopular.
This guy was 47 years old, young guy. Maybe. Okay, I'm joking. But okay, so yeah, it's a strong possibility that
it was rigged.
Yes.
Okay. So strong possibility that this election was rigged. The people go. You mentioned a scandal, right? The tuna bond scandal.
Yes.
Over 2 billion USD, and that money was eaten. And the proof is that just recently, I think a week ago, Open Secrets released the report, and it proved that the president, Felipe Nyusi, was given 1 million. And he obviously bought property offshore in South Africa.
He took 1 million from the 2 billion scandal?
Not even that, the guy beneath him took 7 million. Now, I hate...
Like
okay, this is becoming a very Kenyan conversation, like the one of Omtata and being told, why aren't you driving a big car? Like this guy took 1 million.
No, I'm just saying, if you're going to take a bribe, like commit to it. Don't like half take the bribe. Like what kind of person half takes it? It's like, oh, I'm going to take 1 million so I don't look guilty. Come on.
Do it to the chest.
Do it to the chest, exactly.
Surely. Where is the morality here?
No, I'm saying,
don't steal.
Because you're not a moral person anyway, you've taken a bribe. Why are you pretending like, oh, it's just 1 million? Take 7 million with your chest.
Now you can say now,
so that
like
when
the
they
1 million
you,
I was taking was for investigations.
No,
you understand?
Because you're ultimately gonna get killed. Like when you or like arrested, at least get arrested for doing incredibly.
I'm telling you, but I feel bad. I feel bad for Nyusi that he would do something like that. But in a sense, I also feel kind of like reassured that all of this is happening and we know about it, like in Mozambique. Because there's also even like an argument for that debt that they took on being declared odious debt. Yeah. Right? So now that's a term that's very closely associated with Jimmy Wanjigi here. But I mean, if someone were to find that the premise for the debt that we took on over the past 10 to 15 years was was for theft purely, then Mozambique provides a test case in a sense. Yeah. And be interesting to watch. But okay, guys, we've got lots to push on. I wanted to tell you guys about some stuff that's coming up on Africa Uncensored this week. Sam Munia, our investigations editor, has been out and about in Lamu County, specifically Boni Forest. Yes, Boni Forest there where the Al-Shabaab had been lurking for a number of years. And he's produced a fascinating report. I want to play that trailer for you guys now. Make sure you catch it here on Africa Uncensored. Let's listen. Let's watch that trailer now.
Nimekuja kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku, mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Mchana kutwa sijakula chakula, pressure tu, nauma na pressure inanishika huko.
Trapped by Terror. Very, very interesting documentary filmed on in Bonny Forest. And as I had mentioned, Sam's always going out there to get the goods for us. Very, very action-packed, I should say, and a really compelling story that you should watch this week on Africa Uncensored, Trapped by Terror. Just a note to the guys on YouTube. I'm hoping that we've been able to solve the problems that we're having with our sound. Haley, you say that the mics are too low, echoing. Our apologies. Episode 1, man. We're trying to fix things as we go, but we'll make sure that things get better as we go on, and our guys in the control room will let us know whether things are better. That's for our folks on YouTube. Watu wa X, kama mkona shida mtuambie, but ikibamba sana pia, please let us know what you guys want us to talk about, or whether the topics that we're talking about this evening tickle your fancy. Now we're going to one that's a bit of a doozy here, because we've researched this, we've reported about this, we partnered with Odipo Dev to create a dashboard on this, and the issue is femicide, right? So, you know, it's I don't know how to put this except to say that it's both sad but also a bit like unsurprising that we're back here. Yeah. Where we're talking about femicide like it's a new problem, like it's this emerging sort of like threat, existential threat to our nation, and we're, you know, going from pillar to post reporting about it. But this is something that's been a constant for us for years and years and years. Justine, if there was maybe one or two things that you'd want changed about how we're looking at this issue, what would those one or two things be?
Nimewekwa kwenye spot. I'd say a lot of people do not speak about femicide as it pertains to the economy. And they do not speak about femicide as it pertains to like the, how do I say this, like with intimate partner violence as an issue. Because like the biggest, I think from the statistics that you, Odipo Dev shared, it's a lot of intimate partner violence is at the core of femicide.
That's
like
true.
Husbands are number one.
Just look at this stat, for instance, right? So like in terms of the out and out figures, like far and away, women are knifed or hacked together. That's a very personal way of killing somebody. Anyway, carry on, sorry.
So like when we think about intimate partner violence and how that looks like, from the smallest act that people ignore, or as we were trying to figure out a word for this earlier, it's like a systemic evil that people have just accepted. It's like a lot of people are usually like, oh, it's their business, I'm not going to get involved. But what if like your involvement in that point in time kind of stops something that would become even more tragic along the way? So we should speak about intimate partner violence and how that leads to femicide. And then the second thing I would probably highlight that's not talked about a lot is how economic situations, especially financial strain, usually makes femicide skyrocket.
That's interesting, because you remember during COVID, right, when people were kind of locked down together, no opportunities to work, we saw the numbers kind of skyrocket. And yes, there was impact there were economic impacts, but I think there's also these cultural things, because one of the, and this is, I'm just hazarding, and this is very anecdotal, but I think one of the data sets that we may likely never see is data on femicide or intimate partner violence from middle class to upper middle class folks. Because hapo ni reputations, and all sorts of things that are incentives for people like you and I to kind of avoid the state. Right? Avoid the embarrassment, avoid all of this. But obviously, there's things like that are happening. Jerry Migwe, by the way, you know, from Musikimia, her story is really powerful when it comes to this. Anyway, Tom, you had some stuff to say. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Justine is right in saying that it's become a normal thing in society. It's become a norm to mishandle or brutally beat up a woman.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It could be for cheating, it could be for the most minute of reasons. Like, for instance, somebody gets hot water poured on them because they didn't cook early.
Yeah.
That we've seen that hit the headlines a lot of times. And it's such cases that then manifest in murders.
Yeah.
And for one of the problems with the conversation that we're having right now, we sort of like to shift the blame to the woman and the woman's behavior. And that comes from a lot of beliefs that a lot of women deserve it because of one reason or another. For instance, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and it was around this subject. And their opinion was that femicide is a manufactured concept, doesn't exist. And they provide these stats to prove it, and the murder rates and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
But then the problem with that type of discussion that moves the blame from the man to a woman, you sort of blame the woman for things like aliongea vibaya, shouted at the man. So it warranted such abuse and such anger. And oops, it ended in a murder.
You know, the interesting thing about these kinds of topics is that they're so divisive because it pits one gender against the other. And like one of the stats that are usually trotted out is that out and out homicide, right? There's the killing of everybody, but then also specifically the killing of men is much, much higher, like as a problem, not as a problem, as a fact. Than femicide, both as problems and as facts, I guess I should say. And so someone who would be like, yeah, but men get killed all the time, where's the attention? Would be then like, yeah, this is yet another opportunity to just sort of like clear the dude and say that you guys are the problem, you guys are the ones who are causing these things, you guys are the ones who have, society is, everything that's wrong with society is wrong with you as a man. And I wonder sometimes, is there any truth to that, do you think?
To how?
To that argument, to the fact that sometimes we emphasize what happens to women, and I'm trying to be as careful as I can because people have died. But we emphasize what's happening to women at the expense of looking at this much larger data set of men who also have been killed. And I feel, this is a tough one to walk, but I just wanted to hear what you guys think. Yeah.
For me, I'll say the way women are targeted is very specific. And it has a pattern. It has a very specific pattern. Because like when you're a little girl, you're told, oh, you cannot hang out with this uncle because he's some type of way. And no one is telling that person not to behave in that way. So it's almost like you're putting some kind of
like guardrails
around yourself so that you don't get impacted by something like this, right? And then when you become a teenager, it gets worse because like you're becoming a young woman, and apparently you growing up is now making you like a personal target. And then when you become older, you need to know how to talk to men, don't shout, don't do this, and you're like cutting yourself into size to fit into how like the society is gonna perceive you.
I get that.
Let me do now the flip side. Like when for men, I don't think a lot of them are targeted in this way, but I'm not going to say that men being killed is not a smaller issue.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not they're not.
It's not apples for apples.
Yes, it's not apples. Like that kind of difference is what is usually lost, and we don't have those discussions because people usually feel like they'll say the wrong thing, or it's diminishing someone else's life. But at the same time, I usually feel like when femicide comes up, and like it's like, oh, it's just regular homicide. I don't think it is, and my voice is shaking a little bit because it's it's a bit of whataboutism. It's like, what about us? What about us? And who is having the conversation when femicide is not being highlighted? Who is looking at the cases that are leading to more of these homicide cases? Like, what's happening there? And if we do not have like the what is it called? The facts or the actual stories of like what's happening, then we are not able to figure out the details of like how to stop it or like how to highlight it even more.
Good point. I think another thing that maybe we're missing is beyond the facts, it's the tools to have a discussion like this, right? Because I don't think that just in the circles that I'm in sometimes that you know, some of the men that I speak to are sufficiently tooled to speak to this issue of femicide and not speak at it from a defensive point of view or from a very parochial, oh, it could be my mom, it could be my sister. It should be, well, I mean, everybody comes at things, you know, differently, but you know, in my ideal world, it should be femicide is a crime. So it doesn't matter whether you have a sister or a daughter or what have you, and we should apply the same kind of like, you know, energy in trying to be able to resolve it. But one of the, and I'll just like sort of like dip into an experience that I had repeatedly while filming The Last Door last 2 seasons, was that any time we would step in to like a crime scene where a young lady has been killed, and inevitably, invariably, at least in the series, they were all young, right? You would find an incredibly chaotic scene, very violent. Like the one that never leaves my mind is Naneo Modoni's, whose case actually kicked off last week. And her boyfriend, I don't know if you remember him, he fled to Busia and he was caught, but they lived in this like 1-bedroom, you know, house, which is about the size of this studio, and her blood was everywhere, all over the walls and what have you. So it's the intimacy. It's the fact that for sure that there definitely is a trend with femicide where young girls are in this sense or space of intimacy, and then the killing takes place. The other is, and again, this is a small data set. I'm just using the experience that I saw, is that when you speak to or read about the guys who perpetrated these crimes, there are a lot of like unfinished or incomplete issues with them. You know, either they didn't have like a very strong male figure in their life, or there was like quite a lot of heavy drinking, alcoholism, or there's something in terms of an attitude that informs them on how to be able to treat women. And you know, finally, a lot of them were, so to speak, deadbeats. Like they subsisted off of their girlfriends, and they eventually, upon the threat of being left, killed them. For me, beyond looking at some of these things, it's thinking about, so then what causes a man to grow up like and have all of these sort of like unfinished sort of like corners of their lives that nobody looks at or nobody tends to, that then would eventually lead them to that. So I think that for me is where some of the tooling needs to start. And you know, there's lots to say on this issue. And it's a heavy one, and we'll be speaking about femicide obviously as we go through 16 days of activism from next week. And going forward, we've been covering this as an issue as Africa Uncensored, but generally speaking here on Big Picture, it's something that we're not going to just look away from and talk about, no matter how difficult or painful the subject. But we do have 1 or 2 things left to discuss. Let's just breathe in and breathe out and kind of, so I don't even know whether this is breathing in or breathing out, because this is another triggering one. So there was a Kenya amputee women's football team that finished 4th in the World Cup, and then
that was big.
And then you saw the video of them eating on the floor in hammocks and safari beds. And was that like at an airport or something?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the government has flatly denied those guys walikuwa sawa, right?
Walikula fiti.
Walikula fiti, things were good, everything was excellent. Like, how do you feel about the treatment of athletes generally, as represented by this team?
First of all, I would like to say, Kenyan athletes, you guys are doing an incredible job.
Actually, they're the real MVPs, I swear.
Despite the circumstances, I'm a big fan of all of you. Win or lose, I'm a ride or die. The second thing I'll say, I developed this, it's kind of like a running joke, which I call Washuali, where I was providing a service. Where I was providing a service where I tell athletes if they're going to get any money for the sports that they're in, or if they're going to an international competition, if they're going to get funding. And every time it would end the same. It's like if you had come to Washuali, you wouldn't be saying Washuali. And unfortunately, for the amputee team,
like Washuali.
It's like it's very it's a weird thing, So I feel like this would be a service that would really help athletes not be in like certain positions. If the government didn't have money, it's like, wow, surely I want a pesa. Like it's just like kind of removing them before they get to a situation where you're seeing a video and it's like we live in a giant gaslighting event with the current administration, and I'm not ashamed to say it. There's no way to verify because the athletes themselves said we were comfortable, we were okay, and I'm like, okay, I want to defend you because I saw the video, but also I don't want to tell a story that's not true. So I don't know how I feel about this, but it's just I really, really wish we didn't have to have this conversation about them being number 4 in the world.
Despite
of, but also having this skeevy way of being handled by the government, and then we're being told like we're the ones who are spreading propaganda.
Propaganda. Tom?
It's sad, obviously. It's sad seeing that happen. But then one of those situations and you're like, wow, surely, nimejam. Then you go online, you tweet a thread with 1,000 exclamation marks, and then you're disarmed by, oh, we're good. Don't worry, guys. But then you obviously know that such inefficiencies exist, especially in the sports sector in Kenya.
Oh, man.
And it's not a Kenyan problem. Nigeria, Pia, you saw what happened to them. Was it Tunisia? Or was it Libya? I think it was Libya.
But them
the ones who got bikes from Germany.
No, the folks
during the Olympics.
No, the folks who were trapped at the airport for like a whole day.
Oh yeah.
Then they had to cancel the match, and then
they went back.
Were banned. They were fined, and they lost because of a no-show.
But that's the thing that I liked about Nigeria. In that, is like, you guys are going to treat us like this. We're out. We're bouncing. Our guys, can you remember the Olympics, how guys were sleeping in
Rio?
All sorts?
Oh man, it was a mess.
And unfortunately, this is a story of sports, like since maybe the late 70s to date, right? Where you have, sports that could be professional, could have professionalized a long time ago. And just mismanagement, malmanagement, just pure corruption,
theft.
And theft, outright theft, like taking place. Look for instance, at our FKF elections that are coming up now. So for context, Nick Mwendwa, who was an immediate former chair, is now the deputy, with his deputy running to succeed him. So like a Medvedev Putin situation in FKF, and generally even the list of candidates is a little ridiculous when you think about their track records. In terms of trying to be able to deliver football. Now with football, it's especially pernicious because people play football everywhere in this country, everywhere. And some of the local leagues that I've witnessed, like in Busia, they've got, and Bungoma, they've got a fantastic local sort of like village league that if it was to graduate would be like the envy of the region, if not the continent. But yet again, we keep on getting let down by things that could be resolved by leadership. And the sad thing about it is that it's the sort of area, sport for me, where you don't even have to do that much as exactly as a management or as leadership, etc. Because the passion to play a sport at a professional level, once a person has decided to do that, they're going to you know, they're going to do anything to be able to exactly, and they'll give everything. So where someone is giving everything just as a consequence of the sport that they're playing, the least we can do, like the very least we can do, is facilitate them to sleep in a place that has, you know, like proper beds, or give them the per diems.
Meals.
I mean, there's a rugby scandal that I heard about that's been ongoing, where a coach is asking for the per diem of the guy so that they can get onto the team, and they make millions off of that. So, you know, it's incredibly sad that we are at this position. The big picture, though, is that we've got potential. It's just, yet again, the focal point. The arrowhead is the leadership, and that's where there's a glut.
Can I just like say something pertaining to like what we had spoken about previously? It's like a lot of the perception of like when athletes win, they get a lot of money, right? And then there's all the people who are taking the money, and we never know how much the athlete themselves gets to keep. And can you imagine that situation where you're a famous woman athlete, right?
Yeah.
And maybe your husband is not in the sport, and maybe they don't make significantly as much as you. And then you come home and you say they only paid me a certain amount of money. And you're trying to convince your husband, your relatives in a world where the societal evil norm that has been accepted is like, you can beat your wife. This will literally end up in a femicide issue. Like, it's tied together. Like, sometimes you don't think about like taking away from the athlete has consequence, but it actually just
it does.
It trickles down in this way where it becomes a disaster that cannot even be explained because the people that were supposed to do right by the athlete didn't.
Man, and Haley here on YouTube says, "Wah, surely, Justin." That's hilarious. Reminds me of the chess team that was also denied visas to Italy. Like,
oh yeah, and the ambassador took photos of them and like wrote a little speech.
Like, wow, like for real. Anyway, we've got one last thing to do, and at the bottom of the pile, which is kind of nice, is politics, right? So let's start very far. And then come to Kenya, right? So I don't know if you guys watched this last week. It was on the interwebs quite a bit. This legislator, an opposition legislator from New Zealand, doing a haka in Parliament to protest this treaty of I almost called it Wamatangi.
That's a difficult
the Treaty of Waitangi.
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 Yeah.
Waitangi.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And so like so that's the treaty that basically governs how the Maori and the rest of the people live, recognizing the foundational rights of the Maori, given that they were the original occupants of New Zealand, right? And so the controversy is around, you know, the three principal things. The government has a right to govern, and that Parliament has a full right to make laws. It doesn't seem too controversial, right? The second one, that the rights of the Maori are respected by the Crown. The Crown is a bit problematic for me, but anyway, that is them. They've chosen, they're part of the Commonwealth, and so are we. But here's a sticking point, that everyone is equal before the law and is entitled to equal protection under it. Now, just as an out-and-out statement, that sounds fine, right? But the Maori have a problem with that, in that, because they're the original occupants, and there was sort of like a bi-cultural, biracial thing going on after colonialism. They're like, yeah, but we were here first. We must be seen, basically. Yeah. So, you know, when I saw that young lady like stand up and do the haka, and how like passions were kind of inflamed, I couldn't help but think about our National Assembly.
Like how that would
look
like.
And we've got a video that's playing on there now, folks, just in case you haven't seen it, right? Like Justine, umecheka. Why are you laughing?
Hey, I played this 50th. That's what. Look, first of all, shout out to that. It's a member of parliament.
Yes, a member of parliament.
Shout
Yeah,
out
here she
to
is.
MP Hannah. I think that's her name.
Yeah.
What she did was
Man, it
really,
was so
really
dope, man.
important.
Yeah.
But like the saddest part about like that entire video that we didn't know is
Yeah.
like after they protested, it still sailed.
It's still through first reading.
Because sometimes you're doing your best in that moment and no one is listening.
Yeah.
Because the powers that be need to be able to keep your land and your money
Yeah.
and destroy every facet of your indigeneity.
It's an
And they're
interesting point.
succeeding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I when I think about like our own parliament,
Yeah. Be fair. Let's just start there. Be fair, Justine.
Tafadhali, please, uncle, please.
I could tell the bile that it was just brewing, and you
Yeah.
could feel it. Uh-huh.
what do those people do? Like, what are you people doing in there? Because most of the times when we see one person speak very on any issue, like someone will give like an impassionate speech, and then they're just going to like vote however they want without any consideration of like how it affects Kenyans. And I'm like, what was the point? Like,
Yeah.
why are you there? You're not listening to your constituents. I don't know who you're representing. I don't know if it's a silhouette, but like, get it together, man. Like, we
You
need
don't get it.
representatives. We need representatives who actually do care about people enough for them to like not just like perform a haka in parliament, but like
On the whole,
Yeah.
I think you're right. If you drill down, I think there are a couple of people in there who are actually doing a good job. But like in terms of like the protest itself, Tom,
Yeah.
like what would be like the Kenyan equivalent of the haka, like us going down into the National Assembly and
I mean, the only guy who's supposed to do that is on the other side traditionally.
Nani huyo?
But then Ledama. But that's a different story. Like that's the most Kenyan thing we know. Kenyan Masai. But then now it would be the Anguka dance, and the Anguka na. But then we also saw that getting
Co-opted.
Yeah. So now we're sort of left with this guy who could do the most upstanding thing, but then he's on the other side. So then that representative is the exact definition of a representative, because that lady represented a whole community that was disadvantaged for years, right? Since the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
But then in Kenya, we're seeing the opposite of that. We're seeing a house that is not representing the people.
And this is a big issue that I think we need to discuss, and possibly even call some of these guys here to speak to us, or you know, speak to the audience, you know, about this. Like the state of our legislature right now it's worrying. Like, because you don't seem to see any heterogeneity in terms of the way they vote, in terms of the way they think, in terms of the way they're acting. You know, there's so much, you know, that's going wrong, and I wish that there'd be some more, I don't know, just people being able to stand up and do things because they believe in them. Because I think that this lady who did the haka knew that she was going to lose and it would pass through, but she still registered her displeasure, and she still did that. What's been happening lately is that displeasure is registered, guys stand up and they leave, you know, in protest. It's one way of protesting, but how will we ever know, like, you know, what you're about if you actually don't put pen to paper and vote? But there's so much that's happening politically. I just want to run through like one or two last things. The Catholic Church was like taking heavy shots, heavy fire last week for this statement that they made. Today, I've seen the Anglican Church sort of like have their backs. Let's have final thoughts on the church. And Justine, Mbona, why?
Okay, first of all, let me say this about like the parliament.
Yeah.
You guys are paid by us. You should always remember that. And like your elective seat is not some kind of entitlement to just stay there and do nothing. Your elective seat is very important there's a lot of people's lives depending on the choices that you make. So please make the right choice, even when an envelope has crossed your eyes. Just do the right thing. And then what I'll say about like the church showing up to back us up in the fight against whatever this administration is doing, I think it's really beautiful. Maybe now some of my aunties might be convinced that the protests were not just like some fight, some pointless fight. Yes, like because a lot of people listen to their pastors and fathers way more than they listen to any other dissenting opinion. So I think the church actually holding the government to account, because the parliament and almost every other arm of government is just kind of broken. I think it really helps send the message that the citizenry wants change and we want a functional government. So it's nice. We don't know if they will be convinced otherwise in the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping not, but it really just helps give us solidarity in this moment.
True. Shades of the 90s, and how active the church was in various parts of the church in speaking. Obviously, there have always been people on the other side of it. But yeah, Tom.
I feel as if, let's not lose sight of what's happening in reality, right? Because you have a church that's going and doing a lot of presses, especially today. We've seen like 4 or 3 statements and press conferences.
Shout out to all the microphones.
Yeah, shout out to them. so the new press conferences, are completely different from what you saw at the height of protests.
Yeah.
Actually, at the height of protests, these people are flooding State House. I remember seeing a picture of the same bishops at State House speaking about, I think at that time it was, what are they calling this new broad-based government thing? They were trying to speak
encourage
to the young folks, to get in the room with the older folks. It was supposed to be a unifying moment to them.
Yeah.
In terms of Kenyans and government come together and find a solution.
Yeah.
That was the height of protest. 61 people died, and they were meeting with the president.
But what's wrong with meeting the president? He's the symbol of
why are you
national
now fighting
unity.
him? Why are you now fighting him?
Are they fighting him, or are they pointing out things that are just manifestly
Why didn't
wrong?
they point them out at the height of those things happening when they could have stopped them?
Because the church holds a very important voice, and I agree with Tom. Like in that moment in time, they should have held the line for a lot of Kenyans who cannot get into that room. If you decided to have a conversation, get shot. Like you don't have the same access, and we've seen again and again how even there's like MPs right now and all these government representatives and people saying how they really wish the church came directly to the president. But like it's behind those closed doors where those conversations that are supposed to happen are not happening. So maybe if they do it out in the open, if we have to all go to a stadium so that we can hear every single word, let's do that instead of like the closed doors things where we don't know what they spoke about.
So better late than never, or okay, your opinion is why didn't they speak earlier?
Do it when it counts the most. That's what I'm saying. And also, the same churches host these politicians every Sunday. Like the president was at was it a Catholic church?
In
This
Kayole,
Sunday
with the bad roads.
Yes, and the stadium to be built.
And the stadium that's going to be now affordable housing. Man, you guys.
Yes.
You showed freelance.
It's just terrible, right? Like you have a president that is killed all these people, but then you call a press conference, criticize him. Allegedly killed all these people. I don't want to get killed.
Allegedly led a government in which the police allegedly also, like
supposedly.
If I was to mask it in journalistic sort of, I don't call it escapist, but like in that sort of like guardrail stuff, that's what the statement would sound like. But yes, I mean, there's this very big accusation hanging over the president's head. And you carry on.
And it's the truth, right? Led a government that killed all these folks because I think the buck stops with him. The final decisions are made with him.
All right.
On the table. And he does all these things. You still welcome him to your church, allow him to give you this 5M out of nowhere. Then go and call a press conference and say that, oh, you're being corrupt. You're not doing things right. You're killing all these Kenyans. Then I promise you this Sunday, he'll be at one of these churches which called that press conference to call him out.
Speaking of which, you were supposed to have given us a fact check on a number of harambes that the president has attended or officiated over.
Yeah.
Hiyo ni homework yake. Yeah. So for next week, we shall have those figures.
We shall have those figures.
Tom, you have one thing to say on public participation this week. What's happening?
So you should obviously care about the public participation that is happening around the country. And over the past few months, it's become increasingly important for you to show up to these places because they're rigged against you. This week, there is a tax laws amendment bill that will be discussed in a lot of places, right? And by a lot of places, I mean dozens of places in Kenya. Everywhere that you would imagine, there's going to be a public participation event. So quickly, if I can take you through that. So this is obviously a bill that has been presented in Parliament, and a lot of people are saying that it's the finance bill in different clothes, right? So public participation, first of all, on this, it will be in, I think it's happening in Embu. Just
There's
if you could
Embu
proceed
and I know
for-
there's Isiolo as well. Yeah.
There's Embu and then there's Isiolo, but give me 1 minute as I look for it. Lost track of it as we were discussing Jake Paul. But so
Thomas.
it's happening in geez, I lost it.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Let's
But we'll come back to it in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can reshare maybe in the description?
Absolutely, we can reshare that. But it is happening over the next 2 weeks in different places in Kenya. I think what you can do is you can share on our platforms where it will be happening. But that's important because a few things are in contention here. First of all, I think one thing that I felt personally about is remote work might become something that government focuses on more intently now.
Like in terms of taxation.
Yes, like in terms of
Kujani
taxation.
kazini, why are you afraid of that?
Yeah, so if you're in your socks and it's always Christmas for you, you're always at home. Now you're about to find the guy who's Mr. Silhouette knocking on your door and asking for more money, right?
Mr. Silhouette.
A name is a name. So that's one thing. And then secondly, I think one thing that we've been discussing extensively has been fertilizer in this country.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, right? A lot of people are saying that this bill is going to be lukewarm. It bites and then inapuliza on one side. So that's the digital tax is one of those things. And it could be remote workers, it could be content creators.
Even
This
people
counts a lot for them.
Yeah.
And also diapers, a lot of tax exemption, which in this case will be things like fertilizer. Kitambo, it used to be VAT, but then at some degree there used to be a tax, but then now it's going to be completely tax exempt, which means zero tax.
And
from
we
start
were
to
talking
finish.
about the difference between
Yes.
tax exempt and zero rated. Yes, young ones, please educate me. because-
Justine actually had a really good handle on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so shout out to the Finance Bill 2024 because it taught me these words. So zero rated is bad because zero rated means every single cost that's input into the product does not come back to the person making it at all.
So you can't claim input VAT.
So you can't claim input VAT.
Okay.
So once that goes into the market, all the input costs could literally be put into the final cost of the product that's getting on the shelf. So you'll see prices of items going up. And then tax exempt is kind of good for the people manufacturing because tax exempt means if you make something and you put it out there and the government can confirm that you're the person who created this product, every single input cost that has some kind of tax exemption, they can claim that money back, meaning that a lot of products are going to be cheaper.
Or they don't have to
or
pass.
they don't have to pass the cost
cost.
on to you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So lots of stuff to... Sorry, Tom, you want to say something?
Please proceed. Please proceed.
No, me naenda kumaliza. So, yes.
As I'm seeing here, people can, for the Tax Laws Amendment Bill 2024 and the Tax Procedures Amendment Bill 2024, you can submit your memoranda to the Clerk of the National Assembly by Thursday, 28th of November, 5 p.m. I think this is somewhat similar to what we saw for, was it the term limit?
Yeah.
Discussion where people flooded at the site, and then so it's one of those moments where you can submit what you believe about this. But then there's also going to be a public hearing at KICC between Monday 25th and Thursday.
Are you thirsty for some water?
I should be thirsty for some water. So Monday 25th and Thursday 28th of November between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. But there's also one on the Public Finance Management Bills 2024 and Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Bill 2024. I think what you can do is I can go and do my homework, and then next week we can discuss how this measures up to your well-being as a Kenyan, right?
For sure, we need to all do our homework. And for the public hearings that you were talking about on the Tax Amendment Bill 2024, these are the following counties where it's going to be held. From the 18th was what, today?
Yes.
Yeah, so today there was one that was being held in Isiolo, Bishop Menza Pastoral Center Hall. I don't know whether it's still on there, probably not, because we're now heading past 7 o'clock. There was also one in Bungoma at the Kenya Red Cross Hall. Now tomorrow, Tonanoka Hall in Mombasa, there'll be public participation on a tax amendment bill. In Siaya, the IBC Hall, and on Wednesday in Taita Taveta, Mwatate CDF Hall, and Kericho on Wednesday as well at the ACK Church. So there's quite a bit of stuff that's going on with regard to public participation, but the first step to that obviously is read. So many. Yeah. Just read these bills so that you're also familiar and you can ask good quality questions. Yeah. With that, kwa hayo mengi na machache, we have so much that we could have discussed, but let us take our wins when they are still there on the table to be taken.
Yes.
Lovely first episode of The Big Picture. First of all, Justine, karibu to the team.
I was freaking out, but you guys are really cool.
Na maji hata she's not thirsty. She's not thirsty. And Tom, as always, well done. We'll be expecting more fact checks and more public participation stuff from Tom. And my name is John Allen Namu. I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of Season 3 of The Big Picture. We'll be live every Monday, 6 p.m. East Africa time on X, on YouTube. We're working on being live on Facebook as well. Na kama watu wengine wangependa kuchukua signal yetu pengine, that we could be live elsewhere, you should send in your feedback, send in your comments. We're also working on trying to get you guys to call in live. That'll be dope. That'll be really nice. So we shall see you next Monday. Big Picture time, 6 p.m. # Big Picture. Follow us at The Big Picture on Instagram as well as on TikTok as well. We're going to be there. Lots of content coming up soon. Guys, semeni kwaheri. Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice evening, guys, if you're in Kenya. If you're anywhere else, have a nice day or have a nice morning. Bye-bye.
Nimekuja kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku, mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Mchana kutwa sijakula chakula, pressure tu, nauma na pressure inanishika huko.
kuamshiwa kama saa 9 za usiku, mpaka dakika hii bado hajajifungua.
Mchana kutwa sijakula chakula, presha tu nauma na presha inanishika huko.